This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you, Dawn, for recording us from Literacy Minnesota, and she is our expert in all things Northstar, and she'll guide us through the site administrator training today. Thank you, Teresa.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's nice to see all of you this morning. My name is Teresa Slottick. I am with Literacy Minnesota, and as you probably guessed, I'm located here in Minnesota, so a little bit a ways from where you all are. And we are going to talk about your role as administrators, what you are able to do, and I'm going to give you some background on some of the tasks that can be done in Northstar that you may yourself not be doing, but important for you to know when thinking about what staff might do perform those roles and how you might, help them, as Christine said. So I'm going to share my screen here. And I assume you're seeing the slide deck. Yes? Okay. All right. So today we're going to talk about this is actually not such a great agenda. We're going to talk about we are going to talk about these things, but I'm also going to talk about some other, in addition to this, some other specific admin roles that you have. But first, I want to talk about just remind you of what Northstar has in it. So Northstar, as you know, is intended to be used with people from around basic digital literacy. So even someone who maybe doesn't know how to turn on a computer or how to use a mouse, Northstar is written for that very, very beginning level up to, a little bit higher level. So one thing to keep in mind when using Northstar or implementing Northstar in your libraries is that it's different from many of the other software you might have access to, where oftentimes, and I'm working with libraries around the country, my role is I work with our national partnerships and then Northstar Business Development and Training, and a lot of state library systems have adopted Northstar. And my understanding is that a lot of the programs that libraries have access to are such that you can put them kind of on your library website and people can use them, and it's all great. Northstar requires more hand-holding because it's intended, again, for people who don't have very high digital literacy. So they aren't going to be the people who can maybe find this on your website. Some people who use Northstar will be able to, but a lot of people will be those who are walking into the library. And it's going to take some staff knowledge and some staff help to get them going with Northstar. So just know that up front. So what does Northstar have? Briefly, because I could talk about this for an hour and a half if I have the time. Northstar has assessments that determine how much someone knows and what instruction they need. And we currently have 14 assessments, ranging from basic computer skills, internet basics, email, up to career search. And we'll take a look at all those in a bit. We then have instructor-led curricula, and the intention is that for all of those assessment topics, we would have instructor-led curricula for them. We actually, just this morning, I went in and the 13th one was completed. So we now have 13 of the 14 completed. Now, for some of your libraries, you may be able to offer classes either in person or remotely, and that's great. Some of your libraries, maybe you don't have staff capacity, maybe you don't have room, and that's fine too. But it's always an option. The nice thing about Northstar is it's so flexible that many different types of organizations use it to fit their needs and their learners' needs. The other thing I guess I want to make clear about Northstar is that I'm going to tell you a lot today. There's going to be a lot of information, but start thinking about how you might want to implement Northstar. You don't have to do everything at once. You can pick a place that makes sense for your library, that makes sense for the staff you have and the programs you currently have. And then you can always expand. So with the subscription that the state has purchased, you will have access to everything in Northstar right from the beginning, but you can implement it as makes sense to your organization. So we have the assessments. We have the instructor-led curricula, which is like traditional classroom, if you think about it that way. And then we also have self-directed online learning. And this is where the library patron is kind of learning computer skills more on their own. And a lot of libraries, give access to this and make this possible for the patrons. Again, just a reminder that while some will be able to do this on their own from your website, for example, many won't. And so it may be that if they come into the library and someone talks to them about using Northstar, someone might have to sit down with them for about 15, 20 minutes just to kind of instruct them on how to use it, if they are people who have very low digital literacy skills. And then there's going to be reports that we're going to talk about today and how you can access them. So I also want to, before we go on, say, please interrupt me with questions. You all might have varying knowledges of Northstar, so no question is a bad question. And honestly, I'm here for you. So, and it makes it more fun for me to actually answer your questions. So feel free to either chat the questions or you can unmute yourself and ask the question at any time. All right. So that's kind of a brief overview of the features of Northstar. So now you all are administrators. And Rachel asked, is there a place to see which modules are self-directed? Yes, and I will show you that. And I'll give you a list, but I'll also show you how you can find that out. So thanks for reminding me of that. So, so your role as administrators, Northstar asks that there be 2 to 3 administrators at a library. And the reason to have at least 2 is, in case someone should get sick or someone should take a new job, that at least somebody else knows what's going on. And your main superpower is that you as administrators alone can add staff into the Northstar admin portal. So whoever you want to have access to the admin portal, you're the one who would be adding. You are the ones who would be adding them. And there are some different designations for use of the admin portal. So there are those, all of you who are administrators, and we'll talk a lot more in depth about that, of course. Then there are those who are considered staff, or you're giving them access to the admin portal. And this would be anybody who's going to use Northstar in any way. So people who are going to access, instructors who would access the curriculum, people who would be adding new learners to the system, people who might be running reports. That's mostly it, I think. People who would be looking at assessments, they would all be considered staff. If the other category is proctor. So proctors have all the same access as staff, but they've also gone through like a 15, 20-minute proctor training, so they're able to proctor the exams, the assessments. And so what happens when you all should have access to the admin portal and hopefully know how to get into it. I'll review that with you. But once you add a staff person, they are sent an email from Northstar. So it's not going to come from you. It's going to come from, it's not going to come from, Oakland. It's going to come from Northstar. And then it's asking them to create a password. And once they do that, then they are given, access to the Northstar admin portal. And as Christine says, you're going to get access to the admin portal after today. So you will also get an email from so it will come from Northstar, not from me, but from Northstar. And it will say, you've been added as an administrator, create a password, and then it will give you the login information. So what will happen is it will give you the URL for you to log in. I would highly recommend just bookmarking that so that you have access to it and you can easily get into it. If for some reason you are on a computer that is not bookmarked on, you can always gain access to the admin portal once you have access through our homepage, which is digitalliteracyassessment.org. That's the Northstar homepage. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. But once you do get access, you will have this admin portal toolbar that we're going to talk a lot about today. So over here, you'll have the Northstar logo. Where it says demo on mine, it will have your library name. Then there's a tab for learners, assessments, reports. Location information is where you get to do all your administrative work. And this is something that other people won't have access to. I mean, they'll see it on their screen, but if they click it, it won't let them have access. Resources, and then you can see at the far right your name. So let me first show you how to get in. If you don't have that page bookmarked, I'm gonna move my go-to meeting for a second and show you how to do that. So here we are on the, I have to, it loves to have me logged in, so I have to do some work to get logged out. Here we are on the Northstar homepage, and you can see it's that digitalliteracyassessment.org. And up on the upper right, it says login. So if you ever, again, don't have that page bookmarked or you're on a different computer, you can always log in here. And so you click on login, you'd enter the email address that's assigned to you, your email address and the password you had created for Northstar, and then you just click login. Now for me, it's going to give me a couple different choices because I have them. For you, it will probably just give you your library name. And then you're going to come to this page, which is, we are on the Northstar logo page where mine says demo, and it will say your organization, your library. And this is a handy page because it tells you your information, your specific information. So each of your libraries has their own location pin, and that enables it so that anyone taking an assessment or using the self-directed online learning through your, using this location pin will be assigned to your library. So all their data will go to you, and you'll be able to, see that in the reports. Another way to do that is you all have this in the second bullet point, this site-specific URL. So that's specific to your library. And again, if you use that URL and someone uses that to take an assessment, all the information will go directly to your library. So it makes it pretty easy. So a lot of libraries will take this and they will, put this URL on their library webpage, and so that patrons can go right there and take an assessment if they're able to. Under here is that proctor pin. As I mentioned, if you want someone to do proctoring, they go through this 15-20 minute video training, they take a little quiz, and then they get a proctor pin that's specific to them. And it's something that shouldn't be shared with learners at all. And although I'm sharing with you, it's something that you want to keep private because you don't want it getting out there so that someone taking an assessment could just put in your proctor pin when it's not actually being proctored. Okay, so, but let's look at, let's go back here for a second. And we're going to look at our location information, which is, again, where you have access and no one else other than your other administrator has access. So in the location, you can do things like adding and deleting you can add and delete other administrators in case someone should leave, proctors, and of course, staff. You can also go into your location information, and there are things that you can do there that are kind of specific to your library. And then the edit billing, you don't have to worry about that since you're not being billed directly. but that is there on the screen. So let's take a look at this managed staff one first. So here I am. I'm on the location information tab. I'm going to go to manage staff and click on that. And here it shows me who's been entered, in this location. So there are a couple of different toggle switches, as you can see. Here we have the admin portal access. That's for all staff that you would want to use Northstar, again, for whatever reason, if they want to access curriculum, if they want to run reports, if they want to add learners. Here next to that is Proctor, and that's for those people that you want to be proctoring assessments and who go through that training. They can do everything admin portal access people can do, except they have that unique proctor pin so they can proctor. Admin, this is you. So all of you will have this toggle switched blue. And then NSOL access, NSOL stands for Northstar Online Learning. And so this gives you access to you and your staff access to the Northstar Online Learning so that you can see what your learners see. You want to be able to do that so you can talk about it to them, so you know how to explain things to them, and also you can use it for your own professional development. And we'll look at that a little bit more. So when you see yourself, you will have your admin toggle blue, and automatically Northstar gives everyone access to the Northstar Online Learning. When you add a new staff member, you just come here and add them, and it will ask for, you can see it will ask for their first name, last name, and email, and then you'll create it. And then you'll decide what toggle switches you want. So if you choose the admin portal access, they'll automatically be added. Well, everyone will be automatically be given admin portal access that you create a new account for, and the Northstar Online Learning access. The only kind of manual thing you have to do is if you want to give someone that proctor training, you can toggle this switch, and that will allow them to do what will happen there is they will get an email from Northstar saying you've been added as a proctor. Please complete this video training and this quiz, and then they'll be given their proctor pin. So any questions about adding staff or their various roles that they would have? You can see, I should say, you can have as many staff as you want. You can have everyone on staff, and everyone in the library can have access. And you can also have as many learners as you want. The question was a good question. Why would you not give access to NSOL to a staff member? I can't think of a reason you wouldn't, to be honest, which is why it's a default for us, so that you give access to people. Some of these on here don't have it because this is a demo, and so they're fake people. But yeah, I can't think of a reason you wouldn't give access to staff. Under the admin, you want to have 2 to 3 people. Yeah. So again, in case someone should leave or get sick, you want to have at least 2. And Northstar gives you 2 to 3 because we don't want too many people coming in here and adding and deleting staff. Just those who probably should be. Right? So those are great questions. Any other questions? Okay. If you think of something, feel free to chat it in. All right, so that's what you can do with managed staff. Now, edit billing, like I said, you won't have to worry about that because the state librarian office is taking care of your billing for you. But this edit location information you may find interesting. So let's take a look there. So here, Northstar has on our webpage, our homepage, a feature that allows any individual who comes to Northstar who's looking for digital literacy can put in their zip code and find any Northstar subscribers near them. And let's take a look at just what that looks like so you can see what I'm talking about. So if I were just an individual and I had the skills to do this, and I came here and I wanted to, get some, find out a place that will, let's see if it will let me do this. I might have to log out. I think I do. I wanted to find a place that would proctor assessments, for example, or that would have certain training. I could come to Northstar and let's say I thought I was going to take an assessment. Here it says, you can see under this kind of white bar, it says if you're not part of Northstar location yet, but would like to earn a certificate for passing the assessments, find a Northstar location near you. So if someone clicked on that and they put in their zip code and press submit, you will see a map that shows you all the places near them that have Northstar. And then, if you hover over or if you click on the little orange place marker, it will tell you the name of the organization, where they're located, how to contact them, and what they have available. So if you would like to advertise that for your library, you can do that in the feature that we were talking about. So let's go back there. So again, this is under your location information here in the blue bar. And I'm going into edit location information. So here's where display name, this is what you want your library to be called. This is your website. If you have email or phone number, you can put them there, your address. And if you want to show it on the map, you would click on this box here. This lets you show to people then what you have available to them. So if you're offering assessments that are unproctored, you can click on this box. If you're offering proctored assessments, which then would give people certificates if they passed, you can click on this box. If you're offering the NSOL or the Northstar Online Learning, here's this box. Now, if you click on that, you have some options that, again, would be for your entire library. So if you want to show the take assessment links to learners within Northstar on Learning, and we'll take a look at that, what that is, you can do that. So when a learner has access to the self-directed online learning, what they will see when they log in is this is the first page they'll see. So they won't have an option of testing location. That's because of who I am. They won't have that piece, but they will be asked, right now, are you physically at the testing location? Now, if you want to track that information, so if you want to know if people are using the Northstar Online Learning at the library versus from somewhere else, then you want to leave this question up. If you don't care about that information, you can make it so that this question doesn't show. So, and I'll show you where that is. But so this is one of the options that you have. And it would be for, it's either on or off for everyone who's accessing your self-directed online learning platform. So I recommend keeping it on just because it gives you some really interesting data, again, to see, how many people are using this at the library with your computers, with help maybe from your staff, versus people who are, logging in from home, logging in from maybe work, and using it elsewhere. Just kind of interesting information. So if you have that, they choose, yes or no. And this is the dashboard they come to. Now that question, if you remember, was saying, do you want to make it so that people can take an assessment right from this dashboard. And so you can see on mine, we've enabled it. And so I could click here to take an assessment. It goes right to my site-specific URL. So again, all of your libraries will have their site-specific URL. It would go right to yours. And so instead of saying demo, it would say whatever the name of your library is. And then all that information will be captured into your library system. So this makes it really, really easy for learners to take an assessment that then is tracked with your library. You can turn that off. So why would you turn that off? Some programs, and it's more typically schools, I would say, may turn that off because they want more control of when someone takes an assessment. So it might be that they are offering, a class, and they only want people to take the assessment as a pre-assessment and then not till after they've gone through the whole class. And so they might restrict it. I would guess that in most library situations, you'd want to leave that available, but it's up to you and how you're going to use Northstar. So that's where, that's what would happen if you, again, we're in our location information, our edit location information. If you, if this box show take assessment links to learners within NSOL, Northstar Online Learning is checked, you will see that take assessment button. They will, the learners will see that take assessment button from the from their dashboard. If not, it would be gone. You can also give your patrons the ability to create their own Northstar Online Learning accounts. So in the past, staff had to create learning accounts, and patrons can only use the Northstar Online Learning if they're in the Northstar Learner Management System. And so creating a learner account is quick and easy, but we got feedback from many libraries that, there's so many people coming to a library, they don't have the capacity to, create learner accounts for everyone. So it would be nice if people are able to create them themselves. So if you want to make that available, you can click on this box. And then when someone comes to your, to that site-specific URL that you have, it gives them the option to create their own learner management account. I see in the chat that Joseph said, can you set up all the libraries branches separately as they have different addresses and different hours? Unfortunately, if they're just under one subscription or one site, what we call it, you can only choose one. However, I'll show you how to kind of get around that so that you can put that information out there. Up here, you might just have the main name of the library, but then down below you have this option of this box here that you can put whatever you want in there. So you could type in all the branches and their hours if you want to. Over here on the left, this is where you do the typing. Over here on the right, this is what it will then look like. So you could use that to differentiate it. It won't show up on that map though, which I think is what you're getting at. That will be more whatever the central address you put in there is. The other option you have to check is if you're going to be offering the digital literacy instructions, so this would be the instructor-led classes, you can check this to let people know that you have classes here at your site. The other, getting back to Rachel's question, not all, as I said, only 6 of the 14 topics currently have the self-directed online learning. And so, that's something that we're working on. Excel is coming next this spring, I think. But sometimes some libraries choose to only show those topics that have the self-directed online learning in that dashboard. I personally would give people access to all the assessments, and then there are other ways that they can maybe learn the information either through classes, or we have some access to some free websites that we haven't created, but that others have that we feel, are tied in with the topic. But if you do want to limit that, you can. So you would just uncheck the box. These are all the assessments. You would just check the boxes for those that you didn't want. So how do you know which ones don't have the self-directed online learning? If you go into your dashboard, well, I can probably show you this easier on a slide first. So I'm just going to skip to that slide and we'll come back to the stuff. So these are the 6 that currently are available. So we looked at which assessments were being given the most, and then that's the order that we've created the self-directed online learning. So some of the basics, for getting started, basic computers, internet basics, using email, these are really the kind of key topics for, if someone hasn't mastered these, it's hard for them to do much in digital literacy. So we decided to create those first. And then we have Microsoft Word and Windows. Again, Word we created more in response to the pandemic, where we were thinking people had lost jobs, they would need to be writing resumes, and Word skills would come in handy. Windows assessment is given quite frequently, and then career search skills for the same reason with the pandemic. So these are the 6, and as I said, the team is now working on Excel, and that should be done, I think, in March of 2022, and then social media will be next. A way for the if you don't have my slide in front of you, a way to see what's available is for you, as we talked about, when you add people into the Northstar admin portal, they will have access to the self-directed online learning as well, to that dashboard, so they can see what learners see. And it's really easy to get between the kind of Teresa as staff, for example, and Teresa as a learner. So the way you do that is you go to your name over here in the far right, click on that drop down arrow. I have to keep moving my go-to meeting. And go to the Northstar Online Learning. Then you will be seeing the dashboard. So now I'm Teresa as a learner. And you can see here are all the assessments. All 14 assessments are available here. If it's, if you see something that says complete this assessment and begin the practice lessons, that means there are practice lessons. If you see the details arrow, there are practice lessons, the self-directed online learning. If there are not, you can see in bold it says lessons are not yet developed, lessons coming soon. So those are the indicators of which assessment or which self-directed online learning is available and which is not. Okay. So going back to, and then to get back to your admin portal, if you're entered here as a learner, you again go to your name and you go to the drop down arrow and you go back to admin portal. So again, I highly encourage you as staff to play around not only in the admin portal, but also in the dashboard as a learner. Here you can find, can see what the learners can see, and we'll talk about that in a bit more. So again, though, we're in location information. We've decided, what address you want to put, what you're going to offer, how you want to, if you want to make all the topics available or not. And here's that, when I showed you that piece where the question comes up, are you at your location or not at your location? If you want to ask that question, you can turn that on or off. And then you would always have to remember to save changes so that that's available. and I know it says no for me, but I access the dashboard through a different location. So that location has yes on it, which is why I have to answer that question. All right, so you've had really great questions. Are there any more questions about just kind of how you might set up your site, your library, kind of on a macro level, and how you would advertise it, how you would add learners? All right, so all that is what you have access to, you know, as administrators. Other staff won't. Like I said, they won't be able to click into this location information. It will say they don't have access. All right, so let's then talk about, let's get back to where we were. Let's talk about some of the things that your staff will be doing, and you won't necessarily be doing it. So I haven't included like really detailed information, but if you have questions and you want to go into it today, we definitely can. But I want you to know sort of how things work so that you can best determine how your library is going to do things and who might do them and what kind of basically what the procedures are. We talked about how to switch between, you know, an admin and a learner. Many libraries also use this opportunity, use the assessments and the self-directed online learning to train their staff. So oftentimes libraries will start with having staff take the assessments and then going through the appropriate learning. And that's definitely something you can do if you're going to have people teaching classes. Again, I highly recommend that they take the assessments and then fill in any gaps that they might have. It's going to make them feel more comfortable in the first place teaching the curriculum, but it also is a great professional development opportunity. I also recommend that if you haven't taken the assessments, I would take at least one so that you can see what it's like, what the process is like, kind of how it's written, what language level it's written at. I have never met anyone who has passed all 14 assessments with 100%. So just goes to show that there's lifelong learning for all of us when it comes to digital literacy. One thing I do want to make you aware of that you might want to think about, right? Not even the open staff. When you're talking about Northstar to your staff, is that when learners are added, you have the option of creating tags for them. And so why would you want to do that? When you run reports, there are some reports that are specific to individuals and how they're doing, but then there are also kind of overview reports that show what's happening at your library. And they're great because they'll take every person at your library who's taken an assessment or done the self-directed online learning and give you that data. But sometimes you might want to segment that data and just look at a subpopulation. And so that's where the tagging comes in. So for example, if you are holding classes, you might just want to look at the people in that particular class. Or some libraries like to look at it from, by zip code, so they can see, what parts of the area that they serve, where people are coming from. I'm sure you can think of other ideas. But just to know that is possible, that you can create those tags, and anyone, doesn't have to be you, all your staff have the ability to create the tags. The tags are created for the whole library, but people use them as makes sense, with the learners that they're working with. So how do, without getting too much into it, let's go to our admin portal. And all your staff, when we have the staff training next week, they'll be trained on how to do this. I would also highly recommend that, you're getting access to your admin portal today. I would highly recommend that you add all your staff before that training next week, so that they have access. They can be sure they have access. They maybe have had a chance to kind of go in there and take a look at it. So And sometimes people like to follow along as I'm doing the training, you know, on their own screen. So if you have the chance, it'd be great to add the staff before the next week's training. So I'm gonna go to my demo location here. So tagging. Tagging is associated with learners. So you find it under the Learner tab. And here are an example of some, you know, random classes that have been created here. So you can see you might, or tags, you might put that it's a Monday afternoon class, Tuesday morning class, who the instructor is might be a tag. If you have those branches, maybe you want to put tags for, you know, each branch so that the learners from branch A are tagged that way, from branch B are tagged that way. That might be interesting for you. If you have different class names, like this one was AHS Learner was a class name, or Beginning ELL was another class name, whatever makes sense to you. Northstar doesn't pre-create the tags. You and your staff create the tags. The only thing you cannot tag are, put in the tags are personally identifiable information. So you can't, you know, no social security number, no driver's license number, no birthday. Otherwise, you can do whatever tags make sense to your organization. So here I am under the Learners tab, and you can see it kind of automatically defaults to View Learners here under the word Demo. If I go to Manage Tags where it says New, this is where I would create the new tags. And so again, I can add whatever tag I want. Let's say I have that one. Let's say I have a library called Midway Library, and I want to spell it correctly. I can just type it in and then create the tag, and then it will show up on my list in alphabetical order. So here it is. I can always edit the name if I, you know, had spelled it wrong and didn't notice it. This part in the middle, this is pretty specific to one client we had, not something that you'll probably be using. And then if I should decide to get rid of this tag, you know, I can just click on the trash can, get rid of it. So again, this allows you to create however you would like to segment your reporting information. And Jerry, I see your question. I assume time to complete all these, you mean the self-directed online learning, I'm guessing. And that's a good question. So each one of those self-directed online learnings takes about 90 minutes. However, when your patrons are, you know, added into the learner management system and they have that dashboard access, then they are able to stop and start. So they could do, you know, a lot of people actually will go into Northstar on their work breaks, do 10 minutes a day, you know, 10 minutes one day, and then come back the next day. It will remember where they were. It will track all of that. And then they can go back to where they were. So that's kind of the nice thing about the self-directed online learning. All right, so, and then to add the tags, I'm sorry, I was at Manage Tags. I went back to View Learners. And then if I want to add a tag to somebody, I would click on the box next to their name, and I can do multiple, you know, names if I want to. And up here in the on the right-hand corner, it will tell me how many people I've chosen, and it will say assign tags. I click on that, then I pick that library or whatever tag I created. I can do multiple tags here if I want to. Probably won't do that, but and then just apply. And then tags are added to all those people. All right, so any questions really about kind of why you wouldn't have your staff create tags, or how they might be useful? And I'll show you on the reports kind of where that would show up.
Teresa,
Yeah.
is there any merit maybe having the site admins figure out the tagging part and so that there's the librarian in me is going, this is going to be subject headings gone awry otherwise. But can you talk a little bit about what your experience with different organizations that have done the tagging and who's created those tags?
Yeah, that's a great topic of discussion. So I think that if you, it sort of depends on the organization, but I think there's nothing wrong with you know, and the administrators being the ones who decide what tags there are going to be. More from a strategic kind of planning point of view. You may want to give, you know, if you have staff members who are going to be instructors, you might want to give them the ability to create tags for their classes, just so you're not always having to do it, if the classes are constantly changing, or the instructors are changing. But I think that from a library standpoint, it probably does make more sense for the administrator to decide what tags are going to be used. In a different type of setting, so for like a adult school, for example, it would be probably more the instructors that are creating the tags, because they're going to be wanting to look at their own classes, the people that are in their classes, and how they're doing. So I think those are considerations, but definitely nothing wrong with you as the library administrator saying, yeah, I think these are the tags that we would want. These are the reports I want to see that would make sense for me. And so these are the tags I'm going to create. Now, having said that, you could do that and then still let your staff create tags. It won't hurt anything for someone to have multiple tags, like you can see on this example. And when you run the report, you get to choose what tags you're looking at. So if some tag is irrelevant to whatever report you're looking at, it just won't show up. So you can choose the tags that you want to look at. So I guess that's what I would personally do, is strategically think about what tags you want, create those, disseminate that information to your staff. And then if you do have instructors who might be teaching classes, allow them to create tags that would make sense for their own classes, so they can better address the needs of their learners. So Amanda, a question was, is there a help center anywhere for the hands-on learners? The help center is you. So not with Northstar. We will help you, but we don't have the capacity to help learners. So that's why you want to think about, you know, maybe you do assign a couple staff to be working with learners, or have a place that they can ask questions, or a number that they can ask questions. I would definitely, if I were you, you know, train all the people that are going to be working with the public at least a little bit on what Northstar is, so that they have an idea of what it is and who to go to. And Renee talked about marketing, and Don, you answered that. Yeah, Oakland has the marketing support pieces. They're working on them. We do have some available for you, which you can find in your resources tab. So we're in learners. If I go to resources and go down to other resources, we have posters, you know, flyers, rack cards, where, for example, we'll have, it comes as a download, and then you open it, and it will show, you know, we have some where we've put in pictures and some words, and then in this space here in this light blue, you can add your library information, that whatever you want to put in there. So you can definitely use that, as well as what Oakland is making. No, I didn't see that question. Is there a way to add all staff members in bulk? You have to add them one at a time. So, unfortunately. So again, it would be adding them one at a time, add new staff members, their name and their email. You can add learners in bulk, but not staff. Although that would be a good option. So I will bring it to my team. I think that's a good suggestion. I'm just writing it down. All right, so basically now you kind of know about tags and what they are. Here, these are the 14 assessments that we currently have. And you can see they kind of range from the essential computer skills, really for someone who may not know how to search on the internet, who may not know how to turn on a computer, know what a mouse is for, to a little bit getting started with some of the software that you might use, and then this using technology in daily life they're a little bit more complex topics. But as we look at these, I guess one thing I want you to all know, if you haven't heard me say it already, is that no one person has to take all 14 assessments. And there isn't a specific order that they have to take them in. So if someone comes to your library, even if they come to the library website and they really want to improve their Excel, maybe they know nothing about Excel and they want to learn it for a job, maybe know a little, they could just take an Excel assessment, figure out what they need to still learn, and then either if you have a class, they could learn it, or they could on their own learn some pieces, and I'll show you where they can do that. So there's not like a place they have to start. I will say, and I mentioned it before, that many organizations will encourage people to take basic computer internet basics and using email, because again, if you can't pass those assessments, it's really hard to do much else in digital literacy. You can see with essential software, we're heavy on the Microsoft products. That's what was out there when Northstar was created. Google has definitely taken a much bigger share of the market. So back in January, we created the Google Docs assessment. And then the plan is that we create Google Drive, Google Slides, and Google Sheets. Northstar and Literacy Minnesota are nonprofits. So we do have a subscription fee to cover basically maintenance of Northstar, to cover staff, so that digital literacy is always changing, and we want to be able to keep up with that. But then as we add new features, we have to seek outside funding. So with my point here being that with the Google Drive, Google Sheets, and Google Slides, we can create that once we do get the funding. Using technology in daily life, social media, you can guess what that is. Information literacy, you know what that is. Supporting K-12 distance learning, that was intended for parents during the pandemic, obviously, but many community colleges programs, many higher level training programs do require the use of distance learning platforms for their adult students. And so it behooves many adults to kind of go through that and learn how to use those distance learning platforms before participating in those kind of higher level training or education programs. Career search, you know what that is, and your digital footprint is that idea that people, whatever they do online, leave traces behind. You want to know that you're doing that and what you're leaving, and if that's what you want out there. I'm very excited about the telehealth assessment that's coming up. I've been talking to people in the healthcare field for about the last year about what they're seeing in terms of needs around digital literacy, and there's definitely, as you all know, a big divide in digital literacy. And healthcare is going toward telehealth. It's not going away. So this can be great, right? If someone doesn't have transportation, if they don't have, if they have kids at home, if their health makes it difficult for them to get out of the house, if they're living in a rural community where there's not close access to doctors, telehealth is really wonderful, and it helps a lot of people. But if someone doesn't have the digital skills to participate in telehealth, it's putting them kind of further in that equity, making it not equitable. And in talking to many organizations about learning telehealth, libraries keep coming to the front as a place where people can go to learn if they have the skills necessary, and then ultimately gain those skills. So as you go forward in the new year, think about that. Think about even partnering with healthcare organizations in your area, where you might advertise to them that, hey, we have this available, and we can serve your patients, and see what skills they might need, and then ultimately, of course, Northstar hopes to create the curriculum around that and the self-directed online learning for that. So that's my excitement of the moment. So the assessments are often used. They can be given either proctored or not proctored. And oftentimes, someone will take an assessment to kind of as a pre-assessment to see what they need to learn. They'll do it as a pre-assessment, then they'll get that relevant instruction either through, if you're offering, offering instructor-led classes, or through the self-directed online learning, and then they'll take a post-test. And oftentimes, libraries will offer the assessments not proctored to whoever wants to take them. And then but having a proctored option is also really great, because it allows those who pass the assessments to get certificates. And that can be very meaningful to people. Also helpful if they're doing a job search, and they can put it on their resume, they can put it on LinkedIn, they can talk about it in the interview. And also some training programs do require Northstar assessments to be passed before you're allowed to do the training program. Sometimes we're seeing more and more businesses say, we'd like you to take Northstar assessments and show us your scores, not to not hire people, but to determine kind of what track of training they might need. So a lot of libraries that I've talked to have decided to offer proctoring. Sometimes they'll have specific proctors, obviously, but it might be that they have certain hours. It's maybe like 10 to 12 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where their computer lab is open for proctoring. Maybe whenever the computer lab is open, there's proctoring. Maybe it's something you have to set up an appointment with someone, so that you don't have someone available all the time, but people set up appointments to have an assessment proctored. I would say that it is something that your patrons are going to be excited about and would like to see. So if you can make that available to them at some point, it would be very beneficial. So, and we also talked about how you can use the assessments to prepare your own staff to do the teaching, or just for professional development. I mentioned that you all have a site-specific URL that when someone takes the assessment, they use that URL, all the information goes to the library. And we kind of looked at where that was. Just to remind you, you can find that in two places in your admin portal. Let's see. You can find that here under your library name. You can find that bookmark, that site-specific URL, and also under assessments, if that makes more sense to you. If you click on assessments, here's that assessment launch page. So if I were you and you're offering assessments, I would put this launch page, I would bookmark it on your computers at the library that people might be using to take assessments. That makes it really easy to get to. If you're offering assessments remotely, you can put this on your web page. If you're doing proctoring remotely, which you can do, you can always, if you're doing proctoring remotely, that means you're using a video conferencing tool to, speak to your patrons. But you can put this in the chat and then they can click on it and go in. So lots of kind of easy ways to use the assessment launch page. And also, as you saw, if someone logs into their dashboard and they click on that assessment, take an assessment, it also goes to your assessment, your site-specific URL. So let's talk about kind of proctoring. And again, the reason you would proctor is so that people who pass can achieve those certificates. You can do proctoring in person or remotely. And of course, it helps us maintain assessment viability if something is proctored. So that way we know that, the person taking it isn't using help from somebody else or using notes. They're actually are proving their knowledge. So I'm going to kind of give you an overview of proctoring and some considerations for you. I'm guessing a lot of you won't be proctors, but just so you have an idea, again, of how you might run it at your library. So the important things to know, if you do in-person proctoring, the person who's doing the proctoring the person who's taking the assessment should have access to a computer, a laptop, or a Chromebook. Mobile devices like phones, and let's say you might have tablets at your library. Northstar is not 100% compatible with those devices. That might be all you have. You can give the assessments on them. There are a few questions that are drag and drop questions that just don't work on those devices. We did get funding to make Northstar mobile compatible, and they're working on the code for that right now. And it will kind of slowly be rolled out to various assessments over 2022. But right now, just so you know, computer, laptop, or Chromebook are the best devices to give assessments on. Northstar assessments and the self-directed online learning do have audio. And so if people choose to use that, which a lot of people do, I would highly recommend having headphones, either that you provide or that the patrons bring in, but otherwise it's very distracting if everyone is hearing the audio. I talked about having that launch page bookmarked on your library computers. And then to do proctoring is really quite easy. The proctor just checks the ID of the patron to make sure that they are who they say they are. They read or paraphrase the Northstar Testing Code of Conduct, which basically says that people aren't going to use help from somebody else. They're not going to use their phone. They're not going to use notes. And then they turn on proctoring. And so that means that those, proctors have to have their unique proctor pin. Like I was telling you, they had gone through the short training to get that proctor pin. And if they're in person with, let's say you had it at your library where people make an appointment and the proctor kind of works with people one-on-one or one-on-two. The proctor can then just enter their proctor pin. So again, if we are in you are in your admin portal and I'm under assessments, if I have a proctor pin, it will show up here in yellow. So you just memorize that proctor pin. When someone goes to take an assessment at your site, they go to that page you have bookmarked. It takes them to your site-specific URL. This warning here, that's because I'm also a proctor, so they wouldn't see that warning sign. But then you can see that this is what the test taker is seeing. You can see it says proctor mode is off. And so your staff proctor person would go to where it says validate computer via PIN, click on that. They would enter the proctor PIN, that yellow code, press authorize, and then you can see that the bar turns green and it says proctor mode is on. So then the system, Northstar system knows that someone's proctoring this. The proctor then has the person scroll down and choose the assessment they want to take. And then the proctor will, watch them take the assessment. They don't have to be hovering over them, but just so that they can see their screen. And again, make sure they're not using any outside resources. And the assessments take about 15 to 20 minutes on average for kind of a lower level digital literacy person to take. So, you can kind of take that into your time management with all the various steps. It'll probably take about half an hour. Some people take longer if they're really low digital literacy or lower reading levels, English reading levels. But on average, 15 to 20 minutes. And for all of you, when I encouraged you to take an assessment, it probably will take you, if you feel fairly digitally literate, it would probably take you 5 to 10 to do one assessment. Once a proctor is done, all they do is click on the end proctor mode, because they don't want to leave the computer open to proctoring when they're not actually watching someone take an assessment. So they click on that. It says, are you sure? And that's done. Now let's say you decide to hold a class and you have 10 people in the class. Kind of impractical for your instructor to go around to every computer and enter their PIN, because again, they have to do it. They can't give out that PIN to the learners. It's private, and they need to keep it that way. Or if you elect to do proctoring remotely, obviously, they can't go to the person's computer and enter that PIN. So it's still very easy to do, and you can choose whatever method you want, even if you have just one person. But to do that, to do a large number of people at a time, or to do it remotely, you have your staff will have the capacity to do that. So again, they're under assessments, and think about it as kind of opening the computer lab doors, right? So what they do is they would click on View Current Proctor Session, and that's basically opening the virtual computer lab doors and saying, I'm here ready to proctor. They're the people taking the assessments still see proctor mode is off. Then they are instructed to click on Join Proctor Mode, and it says, hey, I'm waiting for the proctor to respond. Your staff person then should see that person come up here and see that their status is pending. So basically, someone's kind of knocking on the computer lab door saying, hey, I'd like to take an assessment and have it proctored. You then can click on, my mouse is not working very well. You can click on then Start Proctoring. You can see their status is active. And then what they see is the proctor mode is on. So now you're in proctoring mode. This will be recorded as being proctored. If they pass it, they are able to get a certificate. You can do this, for a large group of people, as long as you can see all of their screens. And remotely, you can do up to 10, again, as long as you can see them all on your screen. So depending on what, if you're using Zoom, you can see, more people than maybe Teams. But as long as you can see all the people on the screen, you can proctor them all at once. Then when you're done proctoring that particular person, you make sure you stop. And when you're not available to do proctoring anymore, you click on End Proctoring. So fairly easy from a system standpoint to actually do the proctoring. If it's going to be done remotely, then of course the test taker will need those equipment themselves. They'll have to have the ability to do some video chat. They'll need a webcam so that you can monitor them. They'll have to be able to chat with you either by unmuting or writing in the chat. And if they are using audio, you would want them to know how to mute their microphone, so that, again, you're not hearing all the audio or someone else isn't hearing all the audio. And pretty much the same things you go through, check their ID, read the testing code of conduct, and start the proctoring. And this is all kind of more nitty-gritty information for you. Any questions on proctoring in general? Why you would do it, how you would do it, maybe how you would do it in the library setting?
Teresa, we had a few other questions in chat going back a little bit earlier, but I guess working backwards, the question that is most recent is if the learner takes an assessment, then takes a course, do they receive all the coursework or only the areas they need to learn?
Oh, that's such a good question. So if they take the assessment, what happens is, let's see, I have a picture for you. They get a results page here. I can show you what that looks like. Anyone who takes an assessment, whether it's proctored or not, will get a results page, and that will come up on the screen right after they take the assessment. And what that looks like is, I'm just kind of going through some things to get there. But what that looks like is this. So it will show them their percentage. It will tell them if they've passed. Northstar says you have to have 85% or higher to pass. And over here on the left, it shows those the standards. So Northstar, all the topics are built on standards, which are really the skills that you need, that we've identified that you need to have to be competent in this topic. So this is Internet Basics. These are the standards they've mastered in the green. And then in the gray, these are the standards that they still need to work on. Now, if they have been added as a learner into the learner management system, you can see that, they missed standard 5. They can go to this barbell here on the right where it says practice, click on it, and we'll go right to that part in the self-directed online learning. So to your point, they've passed the assessment. They don't need to do all of it. It will just take them to that portion that they still need to work on. And this would be regardless if they've got 20%, there'd obviously be more standards under the gray, but or 95%. It would still tell them what standard they'd missed, and they would have the option to work on it.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to jump back to a previous question. So taking the assessment with or without audio, is it possible to take without audio, and what are the downsides if you don't use the audio?
Definitely it's possible to take without audio. You can turn the audio off. You can also, there's also closed captioning if that's helpful. And with the self-directed online learning, the words are above, are on the screen as well, that typically the audio is reading. So you can turn off the audio, no problem. The benefits to using the audio is that some people don't read well. And so they might understand better through audio. So trying to make it as accessible to as many people as possible. Okay. So that would be my answer.
All right, thank you. So how often are the assessments updated or reviewed? For example, social media, which changes frequently.
Yeah, so we do a review of all of Northstar, all of the standards, and then the assessments and corresponding educational materials. The last one we did was probably a year ago, and a kind of comprehensive review every couple of years. However, if we get feedback from our subscribers that this seems out of date, or then we'll take a look at that specific thing and change it.
Okay, so we've all been deputized to keep an eye out for content that needs a little updating. Got it. So can we help learners reset their passwords?
Yes, you can help learners reset their passwords because, as we know, forgetting passwords is an easy thing to do that we all probably do. So I would say one thing, if you do help learners create a password, which you can do for those who are pretty low digital literacy, they might need that help. I would definitely recommend having a system. So maybe it's their first initial last name, last 4 digits of their phone number or something, so that it's kind of easy for the library staff to remember how to help someone remember that password. But if they've created their own, or if they can't remember, you can go in. So you are able to see, of course, all the learners that are at your library, and you can go into, so here's a learner, there's a pencil next to their name. You can go to that pencil, and then here's where you can set that new password, and then press update.
Okay, great. So we have one question really digging deep into the content. Has Chromebook finally become compatible with Microsoft Office products? It wasn't before, is the comment.
I believe so.
Okay.
I probably am not the best person to ask that
All right,
question.
we'll try to get an answer for you, Sarah, on that outside.
I actually think I can answer that. This is Don from Oakland. My primary work computer actually is a Chromebook. And while I generally work within the kind of Google Workspace, Docs, Sheets, I have found that when I do open spreadsheets, they really do open within my Chromebook, within kind of the Office 365 application interface in them. So that is more compatible, but also in the context of taking a Northstar assessment and doing the Northstar classes, really all of that kind of the coursework, it often happens without really needing access to those particular applications. No, you can't just like take a disk and install Microsoft applications on a Chromebook. But again, that kind of Office 365 online portal to it seems to work just fine with Chromebook.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Don.
So last question that we have in the chat if I am missing somebody, if I've overlooked somebody, please let me know. Can a patron get a certificate without being proctored?
They cannot. So that's the reason that you would offer proctoring, would be to provide those certificates. And the reason that we do that is because otherwise the certificates don't have as much value if anyone can take them, and we don't know for sure that, again, that they're not having someone else take it for them, or that they're using notes. So in order to maintain the assessment viability and the certificate credibility, they have to be proctored. So, and that brings me right back to what we were talking about in certificates. This is what a certificate looks like. You can see it gives the person's name here where it says Colorado Rocky, that would be someone's name. And then by, have your library name here. It says what certificate they've earned, what assessment they passed, and when, the date, and then the proctor can sign it. If you print this out, you can either print them or you can, send them by email with a PDF if the person has the capability of using email. Certificates mean a lot to people. I have had them give me high fives. I've had them start crying when they get the certificates. Many people who have low digital literacy, they're afraid of computers. They're afraid of breaking them. They're afraid of taking, ruining all the information. And they may not have had a lot of great experience in just education in general. And so this shows them that they can put the time in and the energy and make progress and learn new things. And that is very powerful for many people. I also have heard from other libraries that kids love getting the certificates. So they kind of love all about Northstar because it's sort of gamified a bit, I guess, in that they can see their score, they can see their scores go up. They can do the self-directed online learning, and they pass little quizzes that kind of unlock the next part. And so although Northstar was created for adults, many libraries are finding that the kids really like using it. All right, so let's kind of quickly talk about some reports that you might find is interesting from an overall kind of picture. So reports in Northstar are located throughout the admin portal. And so I kind of want to just briefly show you where they are and what information you have access to. So under the Learner tab, these would be reports, again, about specific learners. And it shows you, I'm going to get to a different page here for a second. It shows you, what assessments have been passed. So all these icons represent one of the assessments, and if you hover over them, it will tell you what it is. If there's a hexagon around it that's in gray or black, that means this assessment was passed, but it was unproctored. If there's a hexagon that's in color, that means this was a proctored assessment. So you can kind of quickly at a glance see what's going on at your library, how many people are taking assessments, and if they've passed or not. You can also, as I mentioned, with anything, you can filter by those tags. So I've got 3 pages of patrons here, of learners here, and that's more than I want to see. Maybe I just want to see who's in a class that I gave or in a certain zip code. So where I can either search by someone's name, but here tags, if I click in that box, it gives me all the options that I have. So let's say I'm interested in my Friday AM class. I click apply filter, and then it's going to just bring me to the 10 or 12 people that I have in that class. If I want to see how all these people are doing on a specific assessment, I can click on that assessment anywhere, and it will show me how everyone is doing. So it kind of shows me if they've taken the assessment and if they've done any of the self-directed online learning. So you can kind of see that at a glance. You can also download this report to a spreadsheet so that you can sort it in whatever way you would most like to. And then for the people that are working, maybe you have volunteers who are working as tutors, or maybe you have instructors. You can click on the learner's name and kind of see their individual history and what they've done. Anytime in Northstar you see the eye icon, it gives you more information. So this is going into what standards they missed. Then over here on the right, which of the self-directed online learning they've done and which they haven't. So again, if you're using volunteers to work one-on-one as tutors, or if you're using staff members or doing classes, all great information. And if we click on the eye here, it will even tell us what questions they missed. So if you're kind of wondering what's tripping this person up, you can actually see the questions they've missed. Never teach to the test, but gives you some indication as to what they need help with. The other
Teresa, so question about that. So it sounds like the primary purpose of that information is to address an individual learner. Are they things that you've seen people do on the aggregate with that information?
Yes, and we'll look at that. We'll kind of move into that. So yeah, this information is helpful if you do have people who are working with individual learners. So if you have it set up at your library where you have tutors, or again, if you're offering classes, really helpful. You also, in aggregate, can see how people are using the self-directed online learning, how much time they're spending on it. So you can see it tracks, again, if you have that option, how many people are using it at your library and how many people are using it from home or something. And it will give you, you can set a date range too, and it will give you those times. Another report that you have that's kind of more bigger picture too, as well as individual, is here I am on the assessments tab, and I can view assessments. So I'm going to just click on this one to make the list a little smaller. But this shows me everyone at the library who's passed an assessment, who's proctored it, what their score is, what assessment they passed. I can modify this again by those tags if I'm just looking at a specific module. So this can help me see what I'm doing. So how am I using Northstar? How is my library using Northstar? How are patrons using Northstar? Are patrons more interested in a particular, are they, well, there's better reports to show that. But, and then in even bigger picture, aggregate, are these under reports. So this is probably mostly what you all will be looking at. Under the reports tab, if we go to the summary report, here, this circle graph is showing you, oops, I'm going to show you a different one that has more numbers to it. Is showing you how many assessments of each type have been taken. So you can see here at this site, at this organization, over 2,000 basic computer skills assessments have been taken. So how does that impact you? One thing, it tells you how you're using Northstar and what the need is to kind of prove to your funders, right? And to think about going forward if you decide to resubscribe. Also, though, it tells you what your patrons are interested in. So you can see at this particular site, you know, a lot of people have taken the Internet Basics assessment, not too many the PowerPoint. So perhaps you think then maybe we should offer a class on Internet Basics and PowerPoint. Maybe that's something that, you know, again, we might have volunteer tutors helping people, or maybe people are just kind of doing that on their own to learn those skills. But there seems to be a large desire in our community for Internet Basics. Here, and Susie, your question is a great one, and I'll get to that in a second. Here, this bar graph is showing you what percentage of people have passed each type of assessment. So again, you might say, well, a lot of people have been able to pass the email assessment. More people are having trouble with Google Docs. So maybe, you know, we recommend that if someone doesn't pass the email assessment, they go on to the self-directed online learning, because it seems like people find that easier to learn. Whereas Google Docs, maybe that's a class that we offer because it seems like people need more help with that topic. So Susie asked, does this include staff who have taken assessments? It does, but this is where that tagging feature comes in handy. So you could, you can filter results, and then you can, you know, if you tagged people as patrons versus staff, you can then run the report that would just show your patrons or just show your staff. So you can apply that filter here. You also have more detailed reports, again, by assessment topic, that would show, you know, the same kind of information here. But if you click on View Report, here it's going to tell you how long your specific patrons are taking on this assessment. So again, for proctoring purposes, this is handy. And it will tell you what questions in aggregate people are having problems with. So you can see, like, question 13, a lot of people are having problems with. If you scroll down, that's also indicated by, you know, these triangles. And question 13 is about hyperlinks. So it's actually about mouse pointers. People are getting confused about what mouse pointer does what. So maybe you have a, you know, like a 15-minute instructional class or whatever you want to say about this for your patrons. You know, people get confused with mouse pointers. We're just going to quickly go over them. Or maybe you have information at in the computer lab about it, but it can just help you decide if you're going to give a short class what to focus on. Let's see. You can also, Amanda, you asked about pulling stats at the end of the month. So for all the reports, you can set a date. For almost all the reports, you can set a date range too. So if you want to just look at month by month, you can do that. Kelly asked about typing and keyboarding. We don't include typing and keyboarding in Northstar, but there is a great free website called typing.com that, so we have our own computer lab here in the Twin Cities. why we use Northstar. But typing.com's, our learners love it, and it's free. It kind of starts with F and J, and then you get a score and you get a speed, and then it progresses to the next 2 letters, D and K. I have found that people really, really enjoy it, and adults especially. All right, so we're at kind of the end of our time. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. Just to let you know, the curricula, make sure you know that Northstar right now is only in English. We're working on making it in other languages, but right now it's only in English. And it's created at about a 4th grade reading level. So we tried to put it at a lower reading level to give people more access. That would be about an intermediate English language level. This stuff is more important to instructors, and you've seen this. The last thing I quickly want to mention is that resources tab in your admin portal. And this is going to have how to do many things, and you can either look through the manual, which is very comprehensive, but broken into various areas. So especially for you, the administrating, no, that's not the one. Part 5 is applicable to administrators. And then, there's short 1 to 3 minute video tutorials here, a quick start guide, which again would tell you as an admin the things that you need to do, FAQs, and other resources where you had that marketing stuff. And then if you have a question for us, you can create a support ticket, which is basically an email that goes to the whole team, and then whoever is the most, the best able to answer the question and the most available will answer the question. And if it's something that, like, let's say, should come to me, it would come to me. So that is Northstar, and we're overtime, which I apologize for. My computer clock and my phone clock are different. So I hope, if you have any other questions, I'm around, but I hope that you have thought of ways that you might incorporate Northstar into your library. It's definitely something that takes, the more time you take to think about it, the better implementation will be. So it's been nice to talk to you all. You've been great in terms of asking questions, really like that. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, everyone. Again, thank you also to the State Library, because the Ohio Library Access to Northstar is funded through a Federal Institute of Museum and Library Services ARPA grant awarded by the State Library of Ohio. I will be going through the chat transcript, making sure that we have answered all of the questions. If not, I will get back to you. I will also be sending a follow-up with recording to the session and some of those questions in an FAQ form. Basically, thank you again, Teresa, for your time and sharing all of this information with us. And we will be in touch with regard to the next steps with your admin login. And if you do have any questions, feel free to give me contact me. Thank you so much. Have a great day. And one more time, I'm going to toss in the link to the eval. Please, please, please fill that out so that we make sure that everybody is ready to go. Appreciate your time. Don, do you have any last words for us before we turn this off and stop the recording?
I don't think we do. I am going to stop the recording